Everyone loves borscht, especially for its bright burgundy color, but its preparation often turns out to be a disappointment. Instead of the expected burgundy color turns out to be a pale and unattractive soup, which can hardly be called borscht. Therefore, in the video, I'll tell you how to make sure that the borscht really remains borscht. The first thing to start with when preparing any soup, this is, of course, broth. It can be prepared from almost any meat or even made from chicken, but to make it truly tasty and rich, it's better if it's beef. On a saucepan with a volume of almost 6 liters, I took 1.5 kilograms of beef pulp on the bone and 800 grams of beef ribs. There is never too much meat in a soup, and therefore its presence should be visible and tangible. Place a pan of water on the fire and lower all the meat into it. Immediately add a couple of bay leaves and allspice peas. We'll add salt to the broth a little later. Boil the beef for 2.5 hours until fully cooked, over low heat. If you don't have any time to cook, then the broth can be prepared in advance. However, that's what I did. Almost 2.5 hours passed. Beef cooked perfectly, the pulp separates perfectly from the bones. Place the meat on a separate plate and let cool. We will cut it into portions a little later. It's autumn now, which means that choosing good fresh vegetables is not difficult. I would especially like to dwell on beets. She's the one is the center of borscht, as it gives it that same burgundy color. And the darker the beets are, the redder the borscht will be. It should be dark both outside and inside. But let's start preparing. Borscht is made not from beets, but from onions. Take a couple of medium-sized heads and cut into quarters rings. Some people love it and even cut it into cubes. Someone already wants it. We need to fry the onions until golden brown. Place the frying pan on the fire. You can fry in your usual vegetable oil. But today, I decided to use rendered pork lard with cracklings. Just because of him, the bao will acquire a brighter taste. Grate 2 large carrots on a coarse grater. If it allows, if you have time, you can cut the carrots by hand. In straws, or the same cubes. To grated, we send the carrots to the onions and continue to fry them together over low heat. My carrots will not get a light roast. Sweet pepper is a controversial ingredient in borscht for many. But today, I decided to add it anyway. Just 1 piece. Cut off all the sides, remove the seeds and partitions. Cut the pepper itself into cubes and add to the onions and carrots. While the vegetables are roasting, we need shred the cabbage. I took the 3rd trim, small size. In order for there to be cabbage, it is more convenient to shred it. It should be cut into pieces and these parts should then be divided into floors. Shred cabbage as thin as possible. If you don't want the cabbage in the borscht to turn into long threads, and if you don't knit it from a spoon, you can chop it into smaller pieces in advance. The broth is strained and finished to a boil. Now you can salt it to taste, put the cabbage in it. No need to be afraid that cabbage it turned out to be too much. It will boil down and become half the size. Now you need to prepare potato. Just 2 or 3 pieces will be enough. First cut it into strips, then chop it small cubes. Drop it into the broth. It is noticeable that I have exactly half the pan with broth. When she will be filled with all the vegetables, you will see whether it is worth adding additional water or not. At this stage, you can add seasonings. I took a couple of tablespoons of borscht mixture and 1 tablespoon of dried celery root. Pour them into the broth. Season everything with a mixture of peppers. The vegetables were well fried and have reached almost full readiness. Drop them into the pan. Options for preparing borscht: great multitude. Some people don't fry anything at all, but simply boil all the vegetables at once in one pan. Grate beets, like carrots, on a coarse grater. I took 2 of them. I think the color is borscht will still depend on beet juice. But if it so happens that the beets were not completely chosen dark, then you can use simple steps to preserve its red color as much as possible. We put deep frying pan on fire. Add all the melted lard too. Lower the grated beet. Fry it over medium heat until it is lightly browned. Beetroot is the last one ingredient that should finish cooking borscht. If you add it to vegetables too much early, at the very beginning or in the middle of cooking, it will lose its color. And that same burgundy one, no one will see the borscht. Therefore, beets must be added at the very end, when the soup is almost ready. It is believed that the fixation of burgundy color is affected by acid. Therefore, we take 2 canteen spoons of tomato paste and add it to the beets. We pass them for literally 3 to 4 minutes. Then we add just enough water to cover the beets evenly. For balance, I weaken the acid, add 1 teaspoon of sugar, leave the beets to simmer over low heat until fully cooked. While everything is being prepared, let's prepare the meat. Separate the pulp from the bones. Slicing beef in small pieces. Due to the fact that the meat languished for a long time, it became very soft and tender. We send it back to the pan. Or you can simply, as many do, add meat pieces to each serving before serving. Now let's prepare a special dressing. Take 7 garlic cloves. Using a grater knife or a special press, grind it as finely as possible. It will be even better if the garlic becomes paste-like. The amount of garlic can be adjusted according to your needs' taste. Separate the branches from the stems of dill and parsley and finely chop them. Shredded, add greens to garlic. We will also need some salted lard. Literally 100 g. We cut off its skin. Like garlic, chop it into small pieces using a knife and then turn into a thick paste-like mass. Add it to the garlic and herbs. Mix everything well. The beets were stewed perfectly and are completely ready. It turned out kind of beetroot thick dressing. Place it in a saucepan. To preserve the borscht its bright burgundy color, let the beets simmer with the rest of the vegetables for literally 5 minutes. Add if necessary. If the borscht turns out to be very thick, you can add a little water. After, immediately add garlic dressing to the beets. Stir and cover the pan lid. After 5 minutes, turn off the heat and let the borscht steep for 15 to 20 minutes. Borscht is always thick and rich soup. Sometimes you don't even need a second one. It turns out so tasty and satisfying. Serve hot borscht with whatever you like best. Whether it's lard, black bread, green onions, or pickled cucumbers. And of course, traditionally thick sour cream is added to borscht. Necessarily prepare this borscht for your loved ones. They will be eternally grateful to you. Cook deliciously and bon appetit.